All right. Ways armor is constructed, turning thoughts into things. What is construction? By construction, I effectively mean the science of which you decide what plates go where and how you make the plates that go the places that you want them to. It's all about covering your body in such a way that you still can move, but you can't be stabbed in the flexible gap areas that you need to be able to move. One example is the theoretical best protected armor is a cylinder with a plate on the top and the bottom, where you are perfectly protected, but all of your limbs are trapped to your sides, and so you can't actually move at all, but no swords can stab you. So it's a trade-off between how much you want to be able to move and how much you want to be able to actually be protected. And that is the science of armor. So this particular video, it'll give you a template, but I encourage you to not follow it, which kind of sounds weird. But in my personal opinion, exactly replicating templates inhibits creativity. Examples can provoke new ideas, but if you just copy what I give you piece by piece, it's not generating any new ideas. It's not giving any creativity. It's just copying my stuff. And in this realm of AIC, everyone has a chance to be their own armor smith and invent their own new things. That's why you should always honor the inspiration and contempt the copy. Look at things that other people are doing and understand why or how they're doing them, but don't just exactly replicate the thing that they've made unless you're all specifically doing it to look one certain way. But even then, you should customize your armor to you because it's your armor. You should have it be the way that you want it to be. And if you see something, a part of design that you think would be better in your way, please change it, because your specifications will always be the best that you can make them. So the whole battle is essentially changing flat sheets into 3D shapes. There are a couple of archetypical shapes that you can kind of make, and they're sort of demonstrated here. They're essentially rolls, plates, and form strips. Form strips are kind of a weird one, but essentially what you got are rolls and plates. So rolls are effectively cylinders. They can be cylindrical or conical in nature, and this one's technically slightly conical, but it's so close to the same thing it doesn't really matter. Effectively, you have a flat sheet. You measure the top, you measure the bottom, and you measure the distance between the two. You cut out a rectangle, and this rectangle has some ins and outs. This one here is for your leg, that's for the inside of your leg, that's for the outside of your hip. And these two on either side are for connecting the knee piece to the actual thigh piece to give you mobility. But at its basic core, you slide your leg through it, and it protects all around your leg. Rolls or cones are the best level of protection because they either have no seams or their seam is an overlap, which is the best level of interplate protection. They're really hard to get in because they don't have a back hole like plates do. Plates are these, again, flat shapes because you're cutting these out of cardboard. But every time you're trying to go from a flat sheet into a 3D shape, you have to either cut it and then retape it, or you fold it. This one is folded incrementally throughout its length. I have 5 listed here and then like a bunch more over here, but really it's every corrugation, there is a micro fold. This one, you specifically fold against the corrugation and you mutate it and tape it solid at these angles to form a knee piece, where then this knee piece attaches to this leg piece, this thigh piece here, and you're able to have a flat plate that covers the knee gap in between your thigh and your shin, as demonstrated in these 4 sets of armor here. This is a plate, and these are both rolls. That's the type of armor they are. And then the technical third one are these formed strips. Pretty much everything is either a plate or a roll, but I have a third category for form strips. Technically, you could call form strips like intermediary rolls, but they're not quite the same thing. They are layers of plates attached in such a way that they each one covers the next one slightly, but they're very thin. But because each one covers the next one very slightly, they're very flexible. They're the other type of mutation you can change that isn't a roll or isn't a flat plate. And then now that you have all these things, you gotta get them on you. Essentially everything is hung or worn. It's all of the weight of the armor, if your armor is all connected to itself, which it should be, is all resting either on your shoulders or like wrapped around your hips with a belt or of some sort, like backpacks nowadays. Hiking backpacks, I mean, they'll have a clasp in front of your chest, and sometimes, if they're nice ones, have a clasp down by your navel or by your waist, so you're bearing a lot of the weight of the armor on your hips. That's where your armor is attached to you. It's attached by hanging on you, and the hang point is either your belt or your shoulders. You can tie or wrap or buckle stuff. These are all getting a little weird. Not quite as weird as the sliding on or the friction fit, but essentially what it is it's a piece of plate that is wrapped around you but is unable to stay because it's not directly on top of you, and so you clip it in the back or buckle it or tie it or some semblance of attachment. Good examples are these 3 leg pieces, where the actual weight of the leg is hung onto your waist piece, which is hung on you, but the actual around nature of the limb is all buckled in the back. All of these are buckled in the back, because if they weren't buckled, they'd just slide out. The plate wouldn't be attached to you, and so the way in which they are attached to you is by being wrapped or buckled. And then finally you have sliding on friction. This is kind of the introductory scuffed way of attaching things to you. These two demonstrate it pretty well, and sort of this one, but you slide your leg in it, and then the friction between your pants leg and the outside of the armor is great enough that it doesn't go anywhere. Really simple arm bands are like this. Those are very, very common with introductory ones. Gauntlets are like this, where the gauntlet touches your arm on all sides, and so there's enough friction there that doesn't fall off your arm, but the opening is big enough that you can slide it off your wrist, so it's a closed loop. One example of that are these pieces here. They are not tied at the top underneath the pauldrons. They're just slid on, which is kind of scuffed, but it's really great for some of the last pieces to get on because you don't have to tie them because you won't be able to reach underneath your shoulders. And then the final kind of science, after you've made the sheets and you've attached them together, is how they cover one another. This is all of the actual armor smithing science. This is sort of the genesis, and then this is the science. After you've made the things, you have to figure out how they fit together and how they protect you. This progression here of no back of knee, lateral back of knee, horizontal back of knee, and then full encased knee is kind of how the armor protects itself, how it protects you by protecting each other, how the other plates interface with one another. So this is the way that, knowing all of these techniques now, this is the way that armor is done. Here's a random, really popular image off of Google that I've seen for years, but you can kind of look at this and go, wait, that's a tube, that's a tube, that's a tube. Those are some version of lames, and so are those. And those are all like wrapped. That's probably wrapped all the way around the kid's head. So that's also technically a tube. That's a tube there, but it's just once at the front. But tubes don't need to be true tubes. They can have a seam. And this seam here is just technically a little wider. But it's all built out of tubes and then some lames to go over top of it. And I think his chest plate is a plate because I'm not sure if it has a back or not. But plate there, and then these are all just tubes. My armor is actually pretty similar. So the way the normies do it are rolls around your legs and then flats over things that aren't your limbs, so like all your joints and whatnot, and weird strips around your shoulders, which are kind of part of your joint, but like also sort of above the joint. Now the way I do it, because I really like rolls. Rolls are the best way of armoring things. It just sucks that the roll has to end, because if the rolls don't end, you have no flexibility. So every most of the things on here are kind of rolls. The strangest example of a roll that will really kind of put into your head what makes a roll so weird are my shoulder pieces, which are underneath two other layers of armor, but they're a small hole here and then a big hole here, and kind of a funnel of my torso into this thinner section, and then my arm. And then these are more rolls, and the rolls are slid over top of the skinnier rolls. And these are just friction fit, but these are actually hung on my body. But it's a roll that isn't a true wrap, so it's not a flat sheet, but it is a couple of flat sheets that are of varying sizes that, one taped together in the correct way, form a roll, form a thing with a tube and two openings, and you slide your appendage through one of the openings and it comes out the other, and it protects what's in the middle. Then partial rolls are on other stuff, so I would call these weird strip lame things partial rolls, because they're kind of curved, and technically there is a plate underneath these rolls, underneath these lames, so it's all connected. It's all one roll, but the rolls are such that they're short enough that they're able to slide over top of one another, and then you can actually glean some more movement within these rolls. And there are lames also behind the back of the legs and on the tops of the feet. And I intend to change it so that there are ones on the inside of the arms, and there are ones on the neck as well. But they're still like flat sheets that are curved around that are attached over top of one another so that each one protects the one underneath it. And then just partial rolls, the lames everywhere else. Like this leg chassis piece here is one roll for one leg, one roll for another leg, and then a roll for your torso and kind of pelvis area, and the rolls are attached together. So it's a manifold. It goes in from one and it splits out into two other ones, but it is fully encompassed in the back. It has a seam to get in and out of it, but it's a manifold roll. It goes from one hole to two holes. So knowing these three different techniques of making rolls, making plates on top of the rolls, and if you're feeling fancy, making the formed strips or lames, I highly advise going out and making armor based not on a template, but on these kind of concepts of looking for places where you can put rolls around your body. And once you got enough rolls, you start throwing plates over top of it. And if you got holes at the back, throw lames on the back of the plates. But knowing all these things, always look for new ways of doing things. I very much believe that each individual person, if they put their mind, even just for like 5 or 10 minutes, into thinking of a new way of doing things, they can make faster, more efficient construction, better, more robust constructs. They can just pondering even slightly with a different perspective can find more mobile, more flexible, or higher degrees of freedom ways of designing same systems. Like these arm shoulder pieces. It took so many years because I was stuck in this same gap of making huge pauldrons for so long. But it took enough pondering and enough looking at others, taking inspiration, not copying from other suits of armor. And I came up with this, and I really like them. I think they work pretty well. But they do highly, highly reduce mobility in exchange for protection. You can get cheaper, less material, different clasping methods. I use so many buckles and ties and so much paracord all over this armor. There may very well be some way, like a friction fit, but for your knees and for your legs, so you don't have to use as many ties. That would be so much cheaper and so much more efficient, and it would make people who don't have access to rolls of paracord being able to make armor as well, which would be amazing. And the most important one is being able to think of new ways of covering previously unprotectable gaps. These shoulder pieces solve the problem that I have been having for years. This armor actually is just a random one. This is just a cosplay. You can see because it's so immaculately covered in duct tape, but he has the same thing where there is no anything protecting underneath his armpits. He just has big enough pauldrons that they're protected. And same thing with my armor over here. There is no joint in between your friction fit arm and your hung pauldron. There's nothing under there. But I figured out how to put another tube inside of that, inside of these other two tubes, the torso and the arm tube, and I protected a gap that I couldn't figure out how to do before. And yeah, it took me many years, But someone else who might have come to it with a different perspective in mind or a different way of thinking about it and was pushed into having to design something on their own could have thought up the same thing, not using all those years. And again, even though this armor is really nice, there are still little holes. There are still a couple of places that I can get stabbed, and that really sucks, even though I've perfected it really, really, really well. There's very few holes, but there are still a few. And it's definitely possible that someone else making armor could think of something to protect small gaps that I've missed in this armor. Here is a template if you want to take inspiration from it. It's, I believe, a 39 piece template where there's 2 rolls, bunch of rolls here, bunch of plates. There are these flat sections here which look like plates, but actually they're taped together, and then you roll them into your torso, and then these go over top of your shoulders and attach front and back. And these are 2 flat plates that get rolled into a roll, and then they slide down your arm. This is the put together version of it. And here's sort of the awkward template for your whole manifold under chassis thing. But you can see how even though this template technically tells you all the pieces to cut out, and I didn't give it dimensions because in theory different people would size it to their own body, this loses out because it doesn't tell you how to actually attach the pieces to one another. That is part of that creativity and figuring out a more efficient or a faster method of construction, that if you could figure out how to use these same pieces but attach them better than I did, you would come up with a way better armor. Like, the creativity that each person is endowed with, just being a human being, is spectacular. And if you really do just think about something for 5 or 10 minutes, it's totally possible you'll find a better way of doing it than the current way is. It's possible that you don't too, but you'll never know until you try. So, given that, this is all Adventures in Cardboard stuff. I hope everyone knows that. Here's their website, adventuresincardboard.com. Their Instagram is Cardboard Adventures In. And here's their YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.